Hey everybody. Because we didn't do a trucks this week, we're going to do a more chatty kind of Mumble Squad now that we've ironed Josh's hardware problems out.
Hopefully.
And what we're going to do is I'm going to play Hexcells Influent while we talk.
Hexcells Influent.
I'm going to play Hexcells Effluent while we talk about stuff.
What are we going to talk about?
It's going to be challenging. We could talk about what we were going to talk about on the trucks, which is music.
We didn't even really know what we were going to say.
It's true.
And you've got a puzzle to solve. It looks like you're doing pretty good.
I mean, I think that I probably am capable of talking about music while I have a puzzle to solve. You said that you were having a big Bjork moment.
I am having a big Bjork moment.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to delve into your Bjork moment.
I don't know, it's just Bjork is good. I don't know how much there is to say.
Well, that's the problem with talking about music, right? Is there isn't much to say.
Yeah.
The thing about this game is that it generates its own music.
It is.
Which we can't hear right now, but presumably the listeners can. The little dinks and donks of the things is part of what makes this such a compulsively playable process.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm impressed, I would be able to solve this puzzle, maybe not as fast as you're solving it, but doing that while talking is a whole other thing.
Well, Josh, I'm just an impressive kind of a person. You
wow,
know that.
Wow.
But that's sort of beside the point.
Yeah, I guess if I were to peg my current Bjork thing to any particular narrative, it would be the one in my life right now where I'm learning to appreciate more so than I have in the past. The earnest and the intimate.
The earnest and the intimate. I mean, Bjork is certainly good at both of those things.
Yeah, it's true.
So, I mean, that's kind of one of the questions that I was trying to get at. Is it ultimately emotional tonal quality that brings us into these spaces and not? I think that maybe it is.
Which spaces?
The spaces of being having a big Bjork moment. That's all about our emotional relationship with Bjork. Whoops!
You fucked up twice.
I made an error based on a faulty assumption. Yeah, I did. I see what I did. That's what I did. There is what I did.
Whether it's the tonal qualities that lead us into liking music or not seems almost like too obvious a question.
It's not so much into liking music or not, because the obvious thing is yes, that is what leads us into liking music, but the counterfactual is
that's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one, but I've taken big ones in my time. It's no big deal. It's just a way of living.
What's the counterfactual?
I would probably get on my blog and say no, music is about the particular notes and sounds. It's not all about emotions, but and some kinds of music appreciation are all about listening to the notes and feeling the textures of it without there being sort of a meaning gradient inherent in that. But some kinds of music appreciation and the ones that cause us to take deep dives like that and to listen to things over and over, I think are more properly understood as being emotional responses. And
sometimes.
Those are the more satisfying ones. Do you think that's true of things that we sort of admire on a more structural front, that we can, really get into the sort of that familiar headspace of being able to listen to a thing over and over without it souring on us?
I don't know, the other music that you just straight up clicked the wrong button there, right?
I did.
Yeah. I don't know, the other band, obviously, that I spent a lot of time listening to lately is Autechre.
Yeah, it's a very different feeling tone.
Right, and I'm still, working on figuring out whether, what percentage of that was an emotional response, what percentage of that was, a structural fascination, and the degree to which structural fascination is also an emotional response.
Yeah, no, that's a tricky one, I would say, and no mistake. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow there.
Not at all. No, that was
more to say about it. Because
only complicated yet unsolved things
such as
the thing with Bjork, right, is that I'm not someone who tends to like the kinds of things that she does when other people do it.
Yeah.
And that's because it's so easy for it to be shitty.
Can you expand on what exactly
the thing about
that she does that you're talking about?
Especially emotionally confessy songs
Right.
Like,
Feelings is a problem.
it's not that feelings is a problem. It's more that feelings are bad more often than they're good in music.
in art generally.
Yeah, like, and that's because they can frequently feel mawkish or insincere.
It's a shortcut. Feelings is a shortcut.
Definitely, like, just the same feelings that produce a lot of Bjork songs produce, like, Tonight. And that's, that's horrible.
We are young. That was impressive. You managed to get a sort of a poor bit rate encoding warble into your voice there. As a commitment to the trash culture bit. Not that there aren't things to be enjoyed in that category, but yeah, the Josh motif is one which distrusts emotion cheaply bought. We'll put it that way. But Bjork's isn't cheaply bought.
Bjork,
right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Bjork
it's hard to know how she does it.
Well, I think it's because she buys it with microscopic attention to the craft.
It's true,
right? She doesn't actually let the emotions do the grunt work of the songs.
But she does sometimes. Like, she really does. There's songs of hers where she just starts repeating, "I love him, I love him, I love him."
But but the interest then is not in that part; it's in the other part, right?
Not always. Part of it is okay. Well, one of those crafts that she pays such close attention to is just how she delivers things with her voice.
Okay.
But that's like purely to the end of allowing her voice to carry that affect very strongly.
Uh-huh.
But it's definitely, generally when I'm listening to Bjork, my response isn't an intellectual one. It's a straight up
some Bjork.
Yeah, it's a straight up visceral one.
I mean, part of that is force,
Yeah. But what it feels like to me is that Bjork has magic that she knows how to do.
Real good art. That resists our talking about it any further, doesn't it?
A little bit, not entirely though. Like, Pitchfork recently put out a hagiography of what was the
Homogenic.
Yeah, of Homogenic.
Yeah, I read that.
It was an okay piece of writing. It definitely had a couple of really good bits in it. Like, one of which was describing Bjork's manner in music videos, as the way she portrays human emotion as like this liquid mercury kind of thing.
Right.
And that's very true.
Is it maybe the reason that you're able to accept human emotion from Bjork is the feeling that she has studied it?
Yes, that might be it. She studied it, and thus she knows how to heighten it.
Yeah, no, she approaches it as a craftsman would, rather than it being reportage.
Yeah, that's true.
Necessarily.
I think that's a good insight. Yeah.
We want things to be thought through and mediated, or you want things to be thought through and mediated.
Definitely, because, just here's my emotions is usually so boring, especially when those emotions are happy clappy, or
Let's see if I can get this under 2 mistakes the next time.
Yeah, let's do it.
But go ahead. Sometimes when I play this game, I imagine that the black parts are nations who are gradually expanding their territory, and that the blue is impassable, and so this nation over here in the bottom left is now expanding, and when it meets this nascent nation here, which I haven't been paying as much attention to, there will be a power struggle for influence between these two nations, and if this one is larger by the time they meet, then it will gain hegemony over the other one.
So you keep track of which one won by the end?
Yeah, absolutely I do.
Interesting.
And I root for there being no connection between the nations so that separate nations can continue to exist.
That doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't, no. Most of the time you end up with a couple of sort of isolated, powerless areas and one giant sort of hegemonic blob. See, they just met. I think that this one on the right gained the advantage, though, because this contiguous area gives it a certain amount of organizational heft, which this one doesn't. It's too attenuated. So this culture now will gain influence over this culture. This is now one nation which is going to grow and expand. I'm going to start up over here to see if I can give this guy a chance to become large enough.
But it depends on like who first takes up a defensive position on this Thermopylae right here where your mouse is.
That is true, but I feel like this nation was already over here by the time they met.
Yeah.
So that's going to be well established at that point.
They've probably got a big city there.
It would be a choke, but I think that the influence was too far gone.
Yeah.
These are the things that our brains do with unfocused input, with numbers and shapes.
Man, I've been playing a similar but different puzzle game lately called Picross 3D Round 2.
Okay, tell me.
It just the only thought here is that it also has numbers, but its notation system means different things, and it's fucking me up here because I'm seeing the numbers with no notation around them and thinking, oh, those are the ones that have to be contiguous.
Right.
And
holy shit, look at this sudden assault on this space. this guy just went expansionist as fuck over here.
See now so what happened, so the nation that started on the lower right conquered the nation on the left, and so they are the ones who take ownership of this thing that just happened.
Precisely. They're moving into a new territory.
I see.
This is a pretty this link is pretty tenuous here. There might if the native inhabitants of this land, which I feel like black sort of signifies sort of organized, civilized in quotes.
Okay.
If these guys get organized, they could probably push back because this is pretty tenuous, this choke point over here.
Fascinating.
But
when I play a game like this, it tends to stay abstract for me. I like that abstract zone. I'm now do not require very much of my brain to play the actual game, and therefore that sort of wanders over into other pastures as I'm playing it. I do occasionally see landscapes here, topographical maps. Mm-hmm. But anyway, back to emotions.
When
I have emotions, I definitely feel strongly that I should probably try to make art about it.
Okay.
And sometimes I try, but usually I decide that what I ended up making was bad, or that the artistic impulse I had was bad.
Because, but that's a statement about what you prefer to consume rather than like the quality. Whoops, so much for that guy.
I don't know if it is.
What a trunk.
Like, nobody likes some scrawled poem about an unrequited crush, like...
it depends on the source. Like, I think that a lot of people, myself included, might be very interested in what that looks like coming from you, personally. But
well, that's because if I did it, hopefully it's because if I did it, I would try hard to make it good.
Yeah, so it's not, it's
I don't think you want to read my unmediated, like...
I kind of assume that people want to read my unmediated, but that's because I have...
but look at your unmediated processes right here. You're doing some complicated stuff with your second brain, so...
I suppose that's
if
true.
you're someone who can do that, then sure, whatever, I'll read your crappy poem. It'll probably at least do something interesting. It'll probably have a trick in there.
Yeah, no, there will always be at least one trick. That is my guarantee, is a trick and an error. At least one error. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy.
It always hurts me so much when I make an error in this game.
Yeah, no.
Because you are robbed of the original narrative of the puzzle.
That is true. That one at least was a real dumb mistake, so I wasn't revealing anything to myself by so doing.
In Picross 3D, you're revealing a shape that's like inside in the mess.
Oh, there we go.
And sometimes you start figuring out the status of the blocks that like the numbers aren't telling you anything sufficient about, just by this is clearly symmetrical. Yeah. So I can make these assumptions, or I'm beginning to think this is a quadruped animal or a car with four wheels. That's
a fun extra, it's a different kind of brain work that goes into it.
Yeah, but it makes me kind of confused and unsure about
2 errors. It's always going to be 2 errors unless it's 3 errors.
It makes me kind of confused and unsure about whether or not I'm cheating myself of something. Because for some reason I can't stop caring about the original narrative of the puzzles, where the original narrative of the puzzle is purely what the numbers are telling me.
And the fun thing about this one is that this one was randomly generated, so it's not like the narrative of the puzzle is completely accidental in as much as there was a narrative of the puzzle.
Right. The design puzzles in this game are like
That's a different story.
They do have like a narrative to them,
and you do feel a little bit sad. But this one, I'm not like fighting with anybody or discussing anything with anybody here. I'm just doing the thing.
Yeah.
So, I have 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
One, what is the emotional content of Autechre?
The emotional content of Autechre is very hard to place, but it's there. I mean, that's kind of what's fascinating about it.
All right.
There's an interview where, like, you hear music like Autechre, and you tend to assume it's purely cerebral, right?
Right.
But when speaking about making it, they say about each other that they don't know anybody who puts more emotion into their music.
Right.
And so it's interesting to listen to it with an ear to try to identify what the emotional content is. But there is definitely, like, there's a very...
One error this time. I swear to God.
You can do it. There's a very consistent tone to Autechre, right? Like,
right.
You can put all of their songs on shuffle, and it won't do anything too stupid because they are all cut from the same cloth emotionally.
Yeah.
But that emotion is a complicated emotion. It has some degree of wonder, but also some degree of anger to it.
The anger was what I was going for. I do definitely think of it as angry music, like frustrated music.
Maybe so, but it also has, like, there's a tranquility in there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not one note, Yeah. It's not a monotone thing. It does, like, vary amidst the chaos, even if that's not, like, always super obvious.
Yeah.
But I was sorry. Go ahead. No.
I guess
I was going to start another thought. You should finish this one first.
Yeah, I was going to say that maybe even though it's difficult to completely understand the emotion that Autechre is putting forth, maybe that is once again an emotional response all by itself, a kind of a big slurry of feeling that is hard to make sense of, but which is nonetheless potent.
Yeah.
And man,
confusion.
Music. What's music?
Well, here's my next question.
Yeah.
You were talking about, like, you can put all of Autechre in a mix and it won't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
Was, I believe, what you said. So, why can't I put Autechre next to Bonnie Prince Billy on a mixtape?
Because okay, for background, he actually did this, and it partly surprised me just because Isaac is not known to be someone who would put Autechre on a mixtape. He's given me shit in the past for playing Autechre in the living room, so it's a bit of a surprise when he suddenly is playing Autechre in the living room.
It's all about context.
And the proper context is it needs to follow a pastoral folk song. Well,
that's not necessarily the context that I was referring to. There's social context involved also.
Yeah,
and
sure.
if you're going to play Autechre in the living room, it can't be like as pleasant background music for a gathering of peeps, because it will not admit to being that. You have to. It has to be
on
either.
The peeps.
It has to be either working music. No, I don't think so. I mean, there are some peeps, I'm sure, who like nothing more than to kick back with a few beers and have Autechre on in the background while they discuss the issues of the day. But it doesn't feel like background music to me, Josh. It really doesn't.
I don't think I've used Autechre as background music for a gathering.
I'm not necessarily. I'm trying to lead you into what I mean here by using an extreme example.
Sure.
But
I would be very curious to hear why you thought that Autechre song followed that Bonnie Prince Billy song, because, I mean, sure, obviously, when building a mixtape, one pays attention to emotional continuity, to a kind of smooth. If not all the songs are in the same idiom, then you at least kind of want a smooth transition between them. Right. But this was, like, I think it's fair to say, a jarring twist in the narrative of your mixtape.
This is true. Well, I have a couple of responses to this.
Yeah.
Let's see. I need to properly portion out my thinking here because I don't want to make an error and I don't want to stall too much. But
That's blue.
which one?
The one above your mouse.
This one?
Yeah, it has to be, right?
No. This could be.
Oh, I didn't notice that one on the left. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's pause for a second and really chew this one over because there's obviously a next step. Oh, I got it. So this one has to be one, and there's only one in this range, so these two can't be. Which means that this one and this one.
Those blue guys with numbers in them are definitely the things that I'm the slowest at processing.
Same with this, which solves this, and then gives me that. Okay, in that case, that was the first and second tracks on the mixtape. So the first track there was functioning as preamble, and the second track, the Autechre, was the entry into the meat of the mix, which was more tonally in tune with the Autechre than it was with the Bonnie Prince Billy. There was nothing else on that mixtape which was as gentle as the Bonnie Prince Billy.
I see.
So it was sort of an opening sally and then a hard right, as it were.
You can clear that one.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course I can. Thank you. And that's sort of like, but then again, I also think, there are definitely mixtape makers who delight in doing sudden shifts in idiom or genre and such like, and you think of that as sort of a juvenile thing to do. It's like, I surprised whoever was listening to this kind of a thing to do, Not the sort of thing that a cool grown person who's making mixtapes would do.
I mean, there's something to be said for juxtaposition, but
I mean, there is something to be said for juxtaposition. Like, I feel that a transition between a Bonnie Prince Billy and an Autechre, even sort of aside from the contextual place inside the mixtape, can work if it is a rhyme between the lyrical content of the one and the tonal content of the other. Because they can both have the same feeling, even though the music doesn't sound anything alike.
I can see that working.
You have to be
really prepared for it.
Yeah, you have to be engaged with it. Well, I mean, that's the sort of thing. When I make mixtapes, I want them to be listened to multiple times, and I want people to... I don't make sort of mixtapes for sitting back and listening to them. I make complicated decisions when I'm putting them together.
Yeah,
and
you're playing with the form of the album a little bit.
And I want those to come out...
So you're experimenting, it makes sense.
Yeah, when people listen to it, just a touch.
Now that I think about it, that third album by Portishead does a similar trick.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. It's all the...
there we go.
It's a little bit more melodic than Autechre tends to be, but it is all the harsh electronic, sad sounds.
Yeah.
But then right smack in the middle of it, there's like a weird kind of... I don't want to... It's bluegrass and country aren't really the right terms, but it's almost like gospel music, actually. Just kind of out of nowhere. But it's very different, of course, for being in the middle.
Yeah.
Rather than the beginning. But I can see that. That's the same palette being played with.
Indeed. I mean, you don't want to... If you play that card more than a couple of times on a single mix, then your audience is just going to start thinking that you're fucking with them and will disengage.
Right.
So you can't have it all be like mood switchbacks. And like nothing else on that mix is as amelodic as the Autechre is. Mm-hmm. So it's from like plunging into the cold water, it's sort of a journey back. With the like it goes Autechre and then it goes like Horse Lords via Matmos, via Boards of Canada, into being like more harsh but melodic.
It blossoms.
Melodic. Exactly. And so that's the idea anyway. But also, like, the secret is that my brain kind of likes the way that Autechre sounds right after Bonnie Prince Billy.
Interesting.
It sounds like that makes sense to me. Like it primes me in a maybe in a non-obvious way, but it primes me for it.
Very interesting.
And
for me, it goes the other way around. Like after listening to a bunch of Autechre, everything else sounds great.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool because you were working so hard to leech the the melodic content, which there is. I've said before that there isn't, but that was just to be contrary.
Sure.
But there's definitely like at least there's a baseline pattern in pretty much every outtaker piece.
Yeah.
There's some movement, but you have to work hard to get that.
Right.
And so once you
beautiful sounds.
Trying to do multiple things at once.
Yeah. Once you're primed, then
it's like living in New York.
Yeah.
Once you've been here for long enough, absolutely everywhere else seems really charming and pleasant.
There was a moment when I was at the height of my
New York
Outtaker
isn't
obsession,
bad.
where like everything, I listened to nothing but Outtaker basically for a straight month. I got into that obsessive thing.
Yeah, that may be around the time when I asked you to stop playing. Speaking of context.
But then I went to I was just trying to share my enthusiasm.
I understand, my friend. It depends on the enthusiasm, how well that's going to be welcomed in this and in so many other respects.
It eventually took, so I declare victory.
But I hate not being able to enjoy a thing.
But as I'm trying to say, like after that month, or while that month was still in progress, we went to a show. It was the Beauty Pill show, and Beauty Pill, an appropriate name for a band for this anecdote. Like we listened to the opening band, who were like nothing special, but there was a moment when they were all playing and all the instruments changed chords at the same time, and I was like, oh my god, that was overwhelmingly musical.
Because you've been living on a fucking diet of dried toast.
Yeah,
where purposefully abstemious in its musicality.
Yeah. But I
what's my next move here?
What
some of these
that 4-line?
A lot of these no, not quite. A lot of these computer generated levels. There we go. A lot of these computer generated levels are very easy, but some of them are by accident quite difficult, or at least take you a while to think about. But anyway, what were you saying there?
Just going back to the emotional palette of Outtaker, I think that actually for me the chief one is fascination.
It's close attention. It's close bringing yourself into narrow focus.
And it's like surveying an alien landscape. Like there's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to see something kind of freaky and weird and new.
Yeah, I can see that. So 1, 2, 3, and then one of these. So neither of those. And then this. Cool. I've been listening to. I feel like for the last year and a half, I've been listening to nothing but Lungfish. Not nothing, obviously, but like just Lungfish continues to be in super heavy rotation for me, and I'm trying to figure out why that's the case. Part of it is that I think that if all Lungfish albums sounded the same, I would have lost my bearing it. But it's actually a band that had a really noticeable sonic evolution while still hewing to the same like madman muttering over endlessly repeating riffs thing going on for the entire duration.
That's Blue.
Which one? Oh yeah, that one. That one is Blue.
I'm sorry. What did you just say? I did the worst thing to do on a podcast. I didn't listen to because I was paying too much attention to the puzzle.
No. That's fine. I mean, if we talk too much about other things, we're going to limit the tension here of whether I'm going to make a late error and thus bollocks my goal here, which was complete perfection.
You're almost there.
I'm almost there. There's 2 left. This is gonna break it. This is gonna break the whole thing wide open, babes. There's that. It didn't break the whole thing.
No, it did.
Open.
Yeah, you got a 3 with 3 blues there.
Oh yeah, so I did. Josh is helping me not make a mistake. 1, 2, 3. It's one of these. So it's not that one. It's one of these. It's not that one. It's got to be this, which will make the difference. It is doink.
Yay! A perfect puzzle.
So that's the last one of those we'll do because it's getting on to about half an hour. But yeah, Lungfish were like, super sort of fugazi funky back in the day, and it's watching the calcification of the religiosity of the guy sort of make its way out into the expression of the music, because the music gets way more mannered, if not any less like hard hitting, as he gets more esoteric, and it becomes more like overtly devotional and less sort of druggy and mystical as it goes. That's a good thing. And like having
just an interesting arc to witness, or do you prefer the latter to the former?
Well, that's it. Here, the thing about it is that having sort of immersed myself in more of the latter stuff and grown to appreciate that a lot, then I go back to the earlier stuff, which I didn't appreciate at all before because it seemed too like raucous and less interesting, and seeing the same patterning in it that I saw in the other ones, but then finding finding it the way that he sort of lets go more and is more musically adventurous and has more and admits more influences in the earlier stuff to again sort of really pop out contra the latter stuff. So again, it's a matter of like, it's really a matter of fasting. It's a Yom Kippur fast. The soda that you drink to break your fast is the best soda that you will ever drink.
Cool.
So what Josh and I are telling you is that...
Don't hit stop.
Oh boy, I almost did too. What Josh and I are telling you is to starve yourself, essentially, and to see what interesting things come when you start eating again.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Well, there you go. We've solved the puzzle and also the mysteries of music and human emotion.
Fantastic.
Don't hit X. Oh, fuck. That could have broken the entire video.
Oh, no, not. Well, we'll find out.
Bye.
Bye.